Welcome to a secluded valley somewhere in deepest Wales. Time Team have come here to solve an amazing mystery. I'm walking down what may have been a medieval or even a Roman trackway, but plonked right in the middle of it is this megalithic standing stone, 3,000 years older than the track. Over here are the remains of a Neolithic tomb, and up there a possible Norman watchtower. This may look like an old cowshed, but there are early Christian symbols carved on the stonework. Could it be a chapel of some sort? But this is the most amazing thing. It's a natural spring. Might not look much at first glance, but in it, the landowner has found hundreds of Roman coins and bits of medieval jewellery and blades and buckles and statues and this weird collection of carved stone heads. What on earth's going on here? Why have all these fragments of history and pieces of archaeology turned up at the same place? Time Team have got just 3 days to find out. Come on. We were alerted to this site by a neighbour of the landowner who was intrigued by what he'd seen. The landowner agreed to invite us to investigate. Llygadwy has been described by some archaeologists as a historical theme park, even suggesting that the place may be an elaborate hoax. As a consequence, no local archaeologist wanted to take part in our programme. Time Team decided to subject Llygadwy to the most rigorous archaeological scrutiny, inviting some of Britain's top experts to what amounts to a forensic investigation of the site. First, we examined the finds collected by the landowner. Cool, all of these came from the spring?
Yeah, it's an incredible collection of stuff, isn't it?
What have we got?
Well, we've got everything, apparently, from Bronze Age axe at this end. We've got a lot of Roman coins, what looks like a nice little Roman figurine here.
That's nice, isn't it?
We've got a lot of brooches, which I think are Roman, a lot of buckles, and a lot of later coins as well. We've got medieval coins and we go right through to the 18th and 19th century.
So what can we say about all this lot?
Well, the problem is that they're not in any sort of archaeological context. They haven't come out of a proper archaeological site. On the other hand, it's the sort of stuff that people might have thrown into a spring.
But from our purposes, does it mean that it's all useless?
No, I don't think so. I think what we actually do is we need to have the whole lot looked at to see what sort of chronology we're dealing with.
So you're going to start on that?
No, I'm going to take it up the Incy room. I've got some experts to do that for me.
The finds seem to indicate that this site is centred around what could be a holy spring, a very ancient place that could date from as far back as the Iron Age. These ancient springs are extremely rare, and only a handful have ever been excavated in Britain.
So, given the finds we've had from here, what do you think would have been going on at sites like this?
Sacred sites like this, wet sites, were crucially important to people because it was the window into the world of the past, the world of the ancestors. It was how the world in which we live communicated to the next one.
I think there is this emphasis on personal items, the idea of unhooking a brooch from your cloak and throwing it in with a prayer or an incantation. I think that was really quite important. And the other thing that you often get is these personal items would be ritually smashed first of all.
The things you offered up to these wells were valuable. I mean, the equivalent today of Land Rovers, Range Rovers. I mean, swords, spears, daggers, and a lot of personal ornaments as well.
The water would actually have been sacred itself, and the whole thing would be incredibly holy, incredibly sacred.
With the spring carefully recorded and photographed, geophys take the opportunity to conduct a thorough survey.
Are you going in?
Even with an electric pump, it's going to take some time to drain the water out of the spring. Because the finds are already out of the ground and out of context, we need to pinpoint exactly where they were found. The landowner, Bill Samuel, has a last-minute change of heart and declines to be interviewed, but nominates his son-in-law, Crichton, to be his spokesperson. When did you first start finding things associated with the spring?
Well, basically, when we more or less started the house, because we needed stone immediately, and as they was taking the wall down, bits of things was keep falling apart.
And that was 5 years ago?
And that was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And were all the finds in the spring, or were they around it, or spread much further out?
Some of the finds was in the dike, a couple of bits and pieces in the wall, some the other side, but basically more or less around the dike area.
Only a few metres from the spring, the dike area is now a silted-up drainage gully. But with the aid of another water pump and a team of mudlarks, we can begin to clean it out and see if any artefacts remain. Did all the monuments look pretty similar then to how they look now? Well, like the Neolithic tomb, for instance.
No. Only that some of the stones was obviously collapsed. We've just picked them back up as we thought in the original position.
Some of the ones you've put up?
Yes.
But not all of them?
Not all of them.
So we now know that the area has been extensively landscaped, but this shouldn't stop us proving whether the Neolithic tomb is real or not. Phil?
Tony?
How do you know that this apparently random collection of stones was a Neolithic tomb?
We don't know that it is a Neolithic tomb. That is the major challenge. We have to actually make sure that we find out definitely which way it is. To all intents and purposes, everybody looks at it, says it looks like a Neolithic tomb. We have a corridor of stones with a chamber.
That's this?
That's the corridor of stones.
This is the corridor.
Passageway leading up to an end chamber, and that would have been slotted into the side of a big mound.
Are you happy that it's Neolithic?
I find it slightly puzzling. It looks right, it looks okay. But the fact that a monument this big has seemingly gone unrecorded, I find slightly puzzling.
In the 10 miles around Llygad, there appears to be no shortage of bona fide ancient monuments, duly excavated and recorded on the Sites and Monuments record. This one's noticeable by its absence. How do we prove that it's Neolithic?
Well, first of all, the easiest way is to dig a hole in it. What we must do is to actually try and excavate some of the stone holes so that we can actually see if there's any datable material actually in the stone hole, either Neolithic or recent. The other thing we're desperate to do is get geophysics to see if there's any outside ditches or quarries.
It's just possible if we go on under the nettles where the mound might be surviving, we might see a bit more. But there's not really a lot from the geophysics point of view, I don't think.
But you're prepared to dig anyway?
Oh, God, we don't need geophysics results.
What?
We do not need geophysics results.
Where are you going to dig?
What we're going to do is we're going to go through here. We're going to see if we can locate the stone hole that stone is sitting in. We'll see if we can get another stone hole here. Obviously, like I say, we've got to make sure that these things don't fall over. And we'll also see whether we can find some more stone holes in here. The main thing is to try and get some dating evidence.
Come on, John.
I'm the only one working here.
Phil's going to be concentrating only on the stones that Crichton says have never been moved or re-erected.
There we are then, chaps.
Hi, Mick.
That's all the stuff.
Right. This is what the farmers found?
Yeah, I want you to get cracking on this. I'm particularly interested in the dates of the material, and then when you've sorted out the dates, whether it's what you'd expect from either a spring or a site of a particular date. I'll come back in about 3 hours, Sallow.
We'll need it, we'll need it. Yes, see you later. See you then. Thank you. You seen that? No.
Not my period.
No, not mine, sadly.
The electric pump seems to be keeping the water level down, making it easier to clean the bottom of the spring, which seems to be composed of a clay layer filled with large stones, but as yet no finds. So Carenza and Miranda decide to examine one of the spring's more gruesome artefacts.
I mean, there's been an awful lot of strange things found here, but this seems to be one of the oddest.
Well, that is very strange, yes.
What do you think it is?
Well, at first glance, it looks like a head pillar. And that it would be something which one would expect to find in southern France, later Iron Age, say 3rd, 2nd century BC, attached to a temple which was involved in a kind of head cult.
How would it have worked?
Well, the Celtic Gauls in that area had a custom of fighting their enemies a lot and collecting the heads of their dead enemies and then bringing them back to their sanctuaries and placing the skull in a niche, very similar to that. This pillar would be standing upright as part of the sanctuary. The skull would be sort of grinning at you, and then sometimes associated, but more often on other stones, you get these carvings of heads. The interesting thing about that one is that it's without a mouth.
And is that because the lower jaw's missing and you've only got the top of the skull?
No, I think it's meant to represent somebody that's dead. The idea that if you can't speak, you are, to all intents and purposes, dead.
But why do you think it's here?
Well, that's the big question, it's the big worry. It is totally different from anything else in Britain. The fact that it's here is extremely odd, and I do worry rather about it.
John's worried as well. He's now completed a comprehensive geophys survey of the spring and the tomb and found absolutely no evidence of any structure anywhere. So maybe Phil was right, that he doesn't need geophys to start work.
Jodie,
Yeah?
look what I've just found.
Oh. Oh, wow.
How about? Get your hands off it. It is. It's a little scraper.
Scraper, isn't it?
Isn't that gorgeous?
That's lovely.
I think I'll probably clip the end of it with the...
Where is
And
that
what's
from?
that? Pot.
It's not.
It is. It is pot.
Things looking up.
Good God.
What you got, Phil?
You'll never believe this, Tony. Look, I was just going to pick this turf up to bung it in the barrow.
Yeah.
And look, what do I find? Beautiful little flint scraper.
And this would be Bronze Age or Stone Age, or can you not?
Well, I mean, you could have something like that easily in the Neolithic, couldn't you?
Yeah,
no problem. And then, like, look, the next turf along, and what happens? Prehistoric pot. No, I don't understand this.
What do you think, Francis?
Well, it wasn't made yesterday, was it? I'd have said that was prehistoric. It's quite soft.
It just goes to show you shouldn't make up your mind before you've got all the evidence. Phil, Jodie and Francis were pretty convinced the tomb was a fake, but now they've got seemingly in situ archaeology to prove themselves wrong.
There could have been an ancient site here, and that's how the flint and the pot got here. But it doesn't mean that those stones are ancient.
So are you saying that these could just be scatter or something that was dropped later?
If there was a prehistoric site here, I mean, just a settlement, maybe someone stopped to have breakfast and did a bit of napping, and then later they came and put that stone thing up.
Oh.
You see what I mean?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We got to be a bit careful about jumping to conclusions.
I mean, I'm still being very cautious.
How can we really ascertain whether or not those finds are anything to do with this?
The crucial thing is if there's anything like this in the hole that was dug to receive that stone.
That's exactly what we want to do. That's exactly
the key
it.
thing.
That's exactly it. That's what we said when we set out with the trench.
So that's just about getting down
to
lower.
get into the stone hole itself.
You've got to get into that. And I thought there's a good chance if you've got this sort of stuff knocking around on the surface, there's a good chance you'll find a lot down there.
Yeah.
Back at the spring, it's all getting very messy.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just scrape down to the clay, don't we?
Miranda?
Oh my goodness. Part of a Roman brooch, look at it. See? A little bit enamelling.
God, the enamel's still there,
Yeah,
green and red.
Green and red, that's really quite rare, it's expensive, it would have been somebody's really valued possession. Again, it's snapped. So they would have kept part of it, thrown the rest of it into the water. That is amazing.
It's in beautiful condition,
it's
isn't
in superb condition, and it probably would have been possibly the most valuable possession this person actually had.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that is the
Excellent.
first proper find we have found here out of situ
excellent.
that we know came
Congratulations,
from here.
that is brilliant. That is absolutely wonderful.
What does that make you feel about the site now? Do you feel a bit more...
I feel a bit happier about it, I must say.
I feel a lot happier now we've known
absolutely.
that we've got
there is
some stuff from
something,
here.
yes, absolutely, yeah. You cannot quarrel with that at all.
Right, time's up, chaps. Where have we got?
Going nicely.
Going nicely.
We've been sorting the material out into different periods.
Yeah.
It is fantastic, isn't it? I mean, there are more finds here than we might expect in a whole series of times.
Well, that's right. We've got a figure of the god Hercules here, and what looks like a goddess's head, and these little animals here maybe associates of gods, so it looks like they're ritual objects, and we've certainly got all these brooches, and if you look at them, you can see they're all broken.
So if you've got all these, is it reasonably fair to conclude that we're likely to have a Roman ritual spring?
Not yet.
Not yet. it doesn't contradict the picture, but there is, you know, we're not totally settled about it.
And what about all these coins here?
They're a good selection of coins from virtually any site from Roman Britain, but they're not really happy about being a spring.
What do you mean they're not happy in being a spring?
Well, if you compared it with Coventina's Well on Hadrian's Wall or the Sacred Spring at Bath, then you'd have almost all the coins piled up there in the 1st and 2nd century.
Where we've hardly got any.
Where we've hardly got any.
We've got tons in this line here.
Then
What's this line here?
The big wells trail off, whereas we get started somewhere around 300, which is a bit of an odd time for a sacred pagan spring to get started, just when sacred things are going a bit,
So what do you think these might indicate?
Well, they're much more like the typical site finds from a villa, from a settlement, from a town, that sort of thing.
So might there be a Roman settlement round here?
It's likely the coins come from a Roman settlement, but I can't tell you where that is.
Curiouser and curiouser. What about all these coins?
Well, these were struck in 1797 for George III in the new steam presses, which had just been introduced to show off the Industrial Revolution. Very heavy penny pieces.
So was something happening here during the 19th century about which we don't yet know?
That's a possibility. It does look as if there's a big peak of activity and interest in our site around the early years of the 19th century.
Very odd. It is a puzzle, isn't it? So what should we do tomorrow?
Well, it seems to me we've got to look for a Roman settlement, and you know, we need to get the geophys people onto that and talk to Stuart about it. But we need to talk to Robin and the historians about
what was going on around here during that peak in the 19th century.
It's an amazing collection, isn't it?
It's wonderful, isn't it?
Only just begun.
Keep going.
It's almost the end of day one, and it's time to see if Phil and Francis have confirmed the Neolithic tomb as genuine. Francis, you said to me that if you managed to get under these stones, you might be able to work out whether or not it's a Neolithic tomb. So is it?
No, absolutely 100% not.
How can you be so sure?
There's no doubt at all. We dug down, and you can see this one here.
You can get your trowel
You
right
can get
in
your hand
underneath
underneath it. It's incredibly shallow. I mean, I could push it over now with no effort. And if that had been standing here for 6,000 years, there's no way it would still be upright with foundations that deep.
Not only that, Tony, we've actually got some dating evidence.
Show me.
You remember when we said the crucial thing was actually being able to date the pits that the stones were in?
Yes.
You just see here this very stony material. That is the actual fill-in of the pit that stone is sitting in. And look what we found in it.
That's not Neolithic, is it?
Blue china and a piece of drain. That is actually in here. And so what we think has happened is that stone has been put up, this has been thrown in afterwards. That stone has got to be dated by this material. And I mean, what we reckon?
I reckon 20 years.
20 years.
These finds may be modern, but these ones which you got up from here this morning are Neolithic.
Neolithic people could have been living here. They could have been making pots, making stone tools and actually living here. We're not disputing that. But the site itself, the structure, which looks Neolithic, we can now show it not to be.
So we've achieved our goal, but are you a bit disappointed?
No, it's great actually. We've stopped a load of rubbish getting into the record. You know, archaeology has actually worked out how old they are.
Yeah, I mean, it is a total thought process. You know, we set ourselves goals, and each time we ticked them off.
So it seems we were right to be dubious about the tomb, and we can now eliminate it from our site map. But what of the spring? We've found a couple of coins and a Roman brooch. Not enough hard evidence yet to prove that this is a real ancient site. So I wonder which way things will go tomorrow. It's the beginning of day 2 in our quest to find out if we're on the site of an ancient holy spring. Roman artefacts are still coming out of the mud, but they're not enough to convince our experts, especially since yesterday when we proved archaeologically that the Neolithic tomb was probably only 20 years old. Today, we're going to investigate a supposed Norman tower, while geophys search for a possible Roman settlement. And I'm going to try and find out why we've got so many 19th century coins. We've got all these coins from the early 19th century and around that period, which seem to imply that something special was going on around then. Have you any idea what that might be?
Well, we've turned up the Reverend Thomas Price, an incredibly well-known bardic authority. You know, he was into the revival of Druidism, and he came here to Cundee, the parish in which we're situated, as the vicar of it in 1825. Now, he's not only into the revival of Druidism and bardolatry, if you like, but also he's good at woodworking and stoneworking. Having looked into his biography, we find here, in this picture, he erects in his vicarage garden, from stones that he's gathered from local quarries, a prehistoric cromlech and a standing stone. And you just wonder, with this creative antiquarian impulse, whether, having become acquainted with this site, he doesn't decide to augment it with additions of his own. To add icing to the cake, we've got a wonderful portrait of him at the height of his powers.
So is there the possibility that everything that we've seen and everything that we've turned up are down to this guy?
There's the possibility that he imported stones and built structures.
He was a great collector of antiquities, and he travelled widely in Europe, where he must have picked up all kinds of artefacts.
So he could have created antiquities on this site. He could also have popularised the site to a degree among the locals. He could even have salted our spring with the coins that have been found.
With no more finds coming out of the mud at the bottom of the spring, it's decided to start a trench in the boggy ground beside the supposed chapel and skull pillar. Another trench has been started to investigate what is known locally as a Norman tower.
Barney, this is supposed to be a Norman tower, so what have you got so far?
Well, nothing Norman so far.
Right.
We've taken a little slot in here.
Well, this looks like a floor, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a flagstone floor.
Yeah.
And it's just coming off to reveal perhaps another flagstone floor.
Right.
So we've got a bit of a sequence.
Yeah. How does that relate to the wall?
Well, I'm not quite sure yet about this earlier one. The later one butted up against it, so that's all right.
Right.
But there's a few funny things about the whole building, really.
It looks very odd, doesn't it?
You see one of the corbels there?
Oh, this thing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's one of the supporting stones that runs through the wall, but it's supposed to be the other way up.
It's upside down, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
So that's one thing, and then there's the fireplace, but there's no sign of any reddening or fire damage or anything, so a fireplace that's never been used?
Well, we've got the buildings chap coming later today,
right.
so, you know, he can have a look at it and tell us what he thinks.
Yeah.
I mean, I think in the meantime, you just carry on and hopefully get something medieval or Norman.
Yeah.
But John's still looking for Roman. Or is he? I think he may have given up. In the spring trench extension, Jodie starts to uncover what looks like another Roman pin.
I thought it was a pin first of all, but it looks like it's coming out to be a spoon.
Do you want some?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks. I think perhaps we should call someone over. Yeah.
Brenda? Yeah? You got something?
Yeah. I think it might be a spoon. Do you want to?
God.
Yes. Seems to be perhaps it's a fork or something.
It's solid, yes. You got straight. It's a sword.
No.
It's a look, it's coming straight back like that. That's the handle of it. Well, no, I know.
Wow.
God, but I mean, wait a minute. What is it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Look, it's carrying on.
Oh my God.
Come and have a look. That.
Good Lord, what is it?
It's a sword.
You're kidding me. We've never had a sword in Time Team before.
It looks as if this is the scabbard. That's part of the scabbard decoration. And that might be actually part of the sword blade there.
Crichton? Oh, there you are. Come and have a look. Has this piece of land been disturbed since you were here?
Not to my knowledge, no.
No one's found anything like this before?
No.
This sword, I think, is sort of end of the Iron Age. It's a La Tène type.
What does that mean?
It's named after a site in Switzerland, which was on a lake, and where dozens of swords were thrown into shallow water amongst posts.
So you would throw this in as part of a ritual?
Oh yes, absolutely. And at La Tène, they were very often thrown in with their scabbards still on.
How many are known from England, well, from Britain like this?
Like that. Oh Lord, gosh, 100 or two.
How many have you seen in Wales?
3 or 4 at the most. And the thing about that is it's so fancy that it may well have been made specially for offering. It may never have been used. It could have been made specially for the gods. And that makes it really exciting.
You look less excited than the others.
I'm really excited about it as an object, but I'm really worried about the context.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, we've been digging here this morning, and we're, what, 10 centimetres below the turf, and it's all wet, it's churned up.
So what's the significance of that?
Well, I'd be very surprised if he got there other than fairly recently. So I think we might be looking at something that an antiquarian dropped or put in.
But surely, I mean, the fact that it's got the scabbard with it, and the fact that the handle's still there, that handle's incredibly delicate. I mean, if that had been kept for a long time...
how has it survived less than 10 centimetres below the soil?
But you say it's odd that it's survived here, but the fact that it is here...
But this is unstratified.
Yeah.
In our trench, we are, as far as we're concerned, in terms of layers, this is still the topsoil. And there have been absolutely no other finds at all in here, which is very strange.
And we've had very, very few finds that I've seen of the late Iron Age.
Absolutely.
And when you have late Iron Age sites, you have finds coming out of your ears. They're everywhere. I mean, the La Tène swords at La Tène, I mean, there was a deep litter of them.
But we don't know that we don't know that we're not going to find any more. We've only just done this little bit.
Oh
of
no, sure
excavation.
thing. But all the finds from this site so far have been Roman.
Surely at the moment it's far too early to understand why this is here and how long it's been here, but anyway, surely it's an incredibly important
Unbelievably
find.
important
Whatever
find.
it
And
is,
it's
Even if it's been put here by an antiquarian.
Absolutely. Yes.
Oh heavens yes, as an object, it's a real object.
I don't think we're any of us are worried about that. As an object, it's very, very important, but it would be even more important if it was in a very early context. But I think Jen and I are very, very sceptical about whether it is.
Okay, Eeyore.
Not Eeyore at all.
What do we do next?
Well, we've got to look round it, get the whole thing, and more importantly, we've got the conservator has got to get it out and look at it.
We need to have a much better idea of sort of the content, where it is. We've got no idea of structure.
I'm not an Eeyore at all. We came to this site because there's loads of finds from it and no context, right? That's why we came here. And so we're finding objects all over the place. That's important. But it's the context that's absolutely critical to understanding this site.
So we extend.
Yeah.
We work very carefully around it. We found the conservator.
Yeah.
Happy?
Absolutely.
The concerns about context have now spread over to the other side of the hedge, to the gully, where tons of mud have been sieved and several artefacts recovered. But they don't seem to be the right sort of artefacts.
Well, it's basically all metalware, isn't it? You've got a few little bits of pot there, a lot of coins. Now that's really interesting. See that brooch?
Yeah.
Well, it's a lozenge type, but it's a mid-1st century type of brooch. And as far as I know, they're almost all found in East Anglia.
Which we're not in.
Which we're not in. There are a couple of outliers. It doesn't preclude the possibility of a stray, but it really isn't the kind of brooch we'd expect to find in this part of the country.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, not only is that mid-1st century,
yeah,
but all the coins you've got here are 250 to 300 years later.
I'm having a lot of trouble with the coins. The coins, these ones here, this is what I expect to find. They're slightly pitted, there's decay, there's corrosion on them. Look at these two.
Well, the first thing that strikes me is that they look as if they've been cleaned. And in fact, if you look on that one there, you can actually see what looks like a gouge mark. But it's got the kind of polished effect that you can produce by rubbing it with a brass brush.
I've got a real problem with this. As an archaeologist, I've got a collection of metal items. I am sieving, I've got a sieve over there, I'm sieving absolutely everything out of the ground, and I have 2 pieces of 19th century pottery.
Make the rule with any Roman site. is that you can hardly move for pottery and tile, and there's absolutely none here. The coins, they're all genuine, but they should come along with a whole pile of other Roman material. You're absolutely right. What really matters here is what's missing.
Yeah.
That tells the bigger story.
I've been digging for 20 years. I have never seen an assemblage that looks like that. There is something wrong with this.
So is it sorted then?
Yeah, I think it is.
Sorted.
Yeah. So have we got any evidence for a Norman building?
No.
I'm afraid not.
Right.
Uncle Norman, perhaps.
But we've got some good stratigraphic evidence for it being 19th century.
19th century?
19th century.
Right.
We've got this wall.
Yeah.
And we took the floor off.
Yeah.
And underneath the floor, there was this makeup of soil. And these stones, and they go right underneath the wall. You can see that, right underneath it.
Yeah.
Underneath those, there's
Oh.
a piece of something like a Keeler marmalade jar or something. You see it?
Crikey, yeah. Yeah.
So you don't get much better stratigraphically.
Well, no, you don't know. So you've got some, I mean, what's that going to be, late 19th century?
Yeah,
or
something like that.
If we've got that there, Will, what does that say about what's going on up here?
At first glance, it all looks very plausible in that somebody's obviously, looked at the local architecture and followed it pretty closely.
Yeah.
But once you start to actually examine it, you can see that the jamstones actually are late 16th, early 17th century.
Yeah, right.
The giveaway really is this very grand fireplace and, great deal of expense for stone windows, and the original eaves level is actually below the level of the joist sockets.
Oh, that's that ragged line we can see there.
That's ragged line coming down.
And the joist sockets are the black holes we can see.
That's
One
right,
with the
yeah.
nest in there, look. Yeah.
So the eaves are actually about a foot below the floor, which is not a way you build a house.
Yeah.
If you actually put the Bressumer stone back on top of the fireplace,
Yeah.
16th century though it is, and follow the line of the eaves up to an apex, you actually end up with about 7-foot headroom with this huge fireplace and these windows really crammed into the side of it.
The building doesn't work as a building, does it?
No. No, it doesn't.
So what are we looking at, some sort of folly or...?
It looks very much like that. There's evidence of 3 different types of mortar used, one of which is distinctly 19th century, and it's in the core of the wall as well.
Yeah.
It's actually got coal and iron slag in it, which must have been, therefore,
that's
has to
what
be
you get
post-industrial
at that
revolution.
day. Yeah.
In this area, yes.
Yes, yes. Well, that all seems fairly clear.
Stuart has had 2 days to interpret the map evidence and confirms what we already suspect.
In 1844, which is the
Tide map.
the earliest data mapping we've got, correct, it shows a fairly ordinary farm complex down here. The present house is just there, Robin.
Right.
This is the house, the farmhouse, and this is the farmyard down here.
Right.
In 1886, 1904 period, the story moves on, it's very different. The tower has appeared here, so that has appeared between 1844 and 1886.
Positioned in plain view of the farmhouse, the folly was just another aspect of the Victorian passion to antiquarianise the site. And it looks like the Victorians had their hands on more than just the tower.
That's a bit dodgy, isn't it?
So, what do we think about this so-called Neolithic standing stone, then?
Well, if it had been Neolithic, it would have been at least ½ a metre in, and it would have been like a rock. So it's not Neolithic. And I think the location's a bit dodgy, don't you, in the middle of a trackway?
Well, particularly when that trackway was not on a map until the middle of the last century. Yeah. I think I'm inclined to disbelieve it.
Yeah, a load of rubbish.
Come on.
Could you tell us how far this is going, the actual sword blade? Well, if he does a sweep there, we'll see...
The removal of the fragile sword from the mud is a slow and laborious business, hampered by a length of barbed wire that seems to be very close to the blade.
I'm a bit worried about this barbed wire. It seems to be heading in the direction of the sword.
No.
Oh dear.
I think.
Go on.
Go on.
Look, it can't go over the top now. It's got to go. It does.
Oh no.
Careful.
This is a devastating discovery. Mick and Jenny were right to be worried about the context of the sword. How could an Iron Age sword be resting on barbed wire? There's only one solution, that the sword has come from another site and been put in the ground at the same time or after the barbed wire.
You wanted context and you've got it.
You can't do better. You can't do better than that.
That is absolutely bloody criminal to put an item like that in the ground. That is terrible.
That's the stone away.
Yeah. And that barbed wire is definitely going under the sword and into that post.
That's it. Yeah.
And the sword is resting on both the barbed wire and the post.
Yeah.
Can we take a sample of that barbed wire?
I think we could probably spare a very small part of this important metal find.
What I'd like to do is compare it with this is modern barbed wire. It's galvanised, got a twist pattern, the barbs.
It looks very similar.
Yeah, they're diagnostic in terms of dating. So if I can take a sample and compare it.
You're an expert on barbed wire.
But I know a man who is.
We can't.
Why don't we just lift
but
that?
we can't slide anything underneath with that stone in the way.
We can't slide anything underneath with a poster.
In the way.
I think you're going to have to support it there as well. Yeah, it's resting on the stone there. It's just moving around.
Despite knowing that the sword hasn't been in the ground very long, it's still a valuable piece of archaeology and has to be treated as such. So the priority is to carefully lift it and get it to a conservator who can stabilise it and prevent it from deteriorating further.
Very slowly. Gently, okay.
It's
I'm up this end.
Yep. Spot on.
Oh.
Game, set, match. And you see that, Tony? Look, there is the piece of wood with our wire attached to it, and that's where the sword was, slap bang on the top of it.
That sword was lying on that post, and that wire is attached to it. I don't think you're going to drag the post underneath the sword without breaking it. It's very delicate, and you can see how thin the handle bit is.
It's the end of day 2 and the mysteries deepen. Just when we were all coming to the conclusion that the Reverend Price may have been responsible for much of the archaeology around here, we find an Iron Age sword lying on barbed wire. Who put it there and why? Tomorrow it looks like I'm going to have to ask some tough questions. Could our 19th century cleric, Thomas Price, have been the person who put all these finds around the spring? Are you happy that it's not a very craftily wrought replica? Did you or Bill buy a sword and bury it there? Yesterday we found what looked like an Iron Age Tène sword, but it was resting on a length of barbed wire. That means it obviously hasn't been in the ground for very long, and that's assuming the sword is authentic. Yesterday evening we phoned Ian Stead, Britain's leading authority on swords and scabbards, and today, a Sunday, he's travelled 400 miles by rail to tell us about this Tène sword, if it is a Tène sword.
Well, it is a Tène sword, yes, I can say that at any rate, and I've seen that bit sticking out, so...
How can you be so sure?
The shape of the hilt end there, that part there actually belongs to the handle. It's the end of the handle.
Yeah.
This blade as well, the profile of the blade, which is very distinctive, but also very rare.
Are you happy that it's not a very craftily wrought replica?
Oh, it's not a replica, no.
Can you give us some kind of date for it?
Somewhere between 150, 250 BC, something like that. It wasn't made in Britain.
Really?
Why do you say that?
At this time we were using bronze rather than iron scabbards. I mean, this could have come from Tène itself.
Really?
It's
Switzerland, isn't it?
It's a Swiss one.
So are you saying that it would have been manufactured at Tène and brought here by someone in the Iron Age, or could it be one of the finds from Tène which has got over here much later?
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, it was. I would think it's not been manufactured in Britain, at any rate. When it came over, is anybody's guess. That is unusual. Yes. I mean, yes, that...
Is it the sort of thing, Ian, that you would expect to find here, you know, sort of south-central Wales?
No.
Right.
No.
Now we can see what our Tène sword will look like when it's fully restored. Worn by an ancient warrior, hanging on his belt attached by what is known as a baldric, and over 2,000 years ago cast into a Swiss lake as part of a long-forgotten ritual. But how did it get from Switzerland to South Wales? And more importantly, when?
This is a blow-up of the photos we're looking at.
Stuart, meanwhile, has turned up an aerial photograph from 1972.
This is the hedge line.
Yeah.
That, which was a derelict barn then, is now the front of the house. That's the tower there.
Yeah.
So we've got other reference points on there. Now, the spring position
Would have been
there. It magnified, and we've changed the contrast as well. There's nothing
Well, I mean,
showing
that's
through
again,
there.
it's in sunlight, so it would be clear, wouldn't
Right.
it?
One of the most telling points when you combine this with the maps is that of 100 years worth of detailed mapping in that farmyard, none of these things have ever appeared.
Yeah.
And springs are a very important feature on maps.
Yeah.
So if there had been a spring there,
They would have
have
put
shown it.
That seems to me pretty conclusive, you know.
Stewart's map evidence is confirmed by geophys, who've surveyed virtually every square inch of this site, including the back garden, and found no evidence of any archaeology at all. We still don't know who inscribed the early Christian symbols in the supposed chapel, so we open a small trench to see if we can find any evidence of a floor. Within minutes, however, they seem to have solved the chapel mystery. Instead of a floor, they found layers of rotted animal dung and a drainage channel heading out of the building towards the spring. So it looks like our chapel is in fact an animal house or stable, but who drew the Christian symbols? We'll never know. But similar inscriptions in other parts of the country are often ascribed to the idle doodlings of bored but religious farm workers. And who's responsible for these strange carved heads? They could be subjected to microscopic analysis to try and find traces of ancient or modern chisel marks. But this process is time-consuming and expensive. And knowing that Reverend Price was handy with his hands, the probability is we'd be wasting our time and money.
Oh, that's cleaning up really well, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? It's much thicker than I expected.
It's really quite a substantial piece of stone, isn't it? Yes.
We've got no additional heads down here, and we've still got the head and the recess. Have you managed to find an example of that yet?
Well, yes, actually. I have found from southern France, from Entremont, in the Lower Rhone Valley, this stone here, which is a horizontal stone. It was a lintel from a temple.
Does that make you more confident that this might be genuine then, now you've found another example which has got the recess and the carving together?
Well, no, actually. The treatment of the nose is subtly different. You've got the nose standing proud of the face.
Oh, right, yes, the cheeks have been carved away either side and that's been left standing proud.
That's right. Whereas if you look at that one, the nose is rather different, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it's hollowed out in there.
And it's the sort of thing which you'd expect to find if somebody's copying from a drawing, where it's quite difficult to see whether it's indented or not.
Right, because you can easily get confused by the direction of light, can't you?
Absolutely right, yes.
When do you think it might have been done?
My guess is probably sometime within the last couple of 100 years.
Really? Why do you think that?
Well, it may be that it was part of the great Druidic revival, the 18th and 19th centuries in Wales. It would be wonderful were it original. It would be so exciting because it would be the only one from Britain, the only one outside southern France. But alas, it is not to be.
So this is all the material that's been found around the spring, that we've found, that Bill's found. This is everything.
That's absolutely it, yep, the whole lot.
Could our 19th century cleric, Thomas Price, have been the person who put all these finds around the spring?
In theory, that's absolutely possible, because with the exception of one or two modern coins, all this material belongs to his time or before. The problem is that he wouldn't have known how to build it up into the correct proportions that we would expect from large-scale excavation.
What do you mean by that?
Well, nobody in the early 19th century would bother to dig up and collect this range of coins. He also wouldn't have had the metal detectors to find it. It's metal detectors that have produced this sort of coinage from some sites, or the large-scale excavations of the 20th century that Richard's been involved on other sites.
Is there anything else about the finds that might indicate that they haven't been under the earth for a couple of thousand years?
What we've got here is a whole range of artefacts, an awful lot of buckles. Again, those are familiar finds from Welsh springs. But if you look, the colour of many of the finds are quite different. They look as if they've been in different soils.
There's this coin here, which looks as if it's been broken very, very recently and stuck together again with glue.
Now, just in case you were sceptical about that, I actually saw it come out of the ground. I saw it emerge from the soil, from the sieving, down in one of the trenches. So we know it was underground when it was here, but the Romans didn't glue their coins back together again. And here on the statuette, if you look very carefully, you can see some writing and a swastika. Swastika is an ancient motif. The trouble is it's been cut through the patina, the green that's built up on the metal in the thousands of years since this was made. So it can't possibly have been done in ancient times.
So sometime after this had gone green, someone
has cut a mark into it to make it look as if there's ancient writing on it.
So someone salted this spring with ancient goods.
Within living memory.
Living memory brings us firmly into the 20th century. But we're keen to narrow it down even further, so Stuart takes his barbed wire sample to see a local expert.
Well, we went to the local agricultural wire suppliers, people who supply farmers around this area, and asked him to look at this and give us a date.
That's the bit that came out of the trench?
That's the one.
That was underneath the sword?
Yeah. I took some samples from fences and so on round about as well, just to get some idea. But the man at the suppliers said that's less than 20 years old.
Less than 20 years old?
Yeah, yeah. And I've actually found a match for it in the samples round about, which is that piece there with the weave and the spacing and the gauge.
Yeah. And where's that from?
That's from just on the fence over there, let me show you. That's where that sample came from.
Right.
Just almost a couple of metres from where the sword was.
So it's still in the current fencing?
So by Stuart's reckoning, the wire on the fence can't be earlier than 1980. But as we clean up the area where the sword was found, Carenza discovers that the offending length of barbed wire continues into the service trench, a trench dug to supply power to the new house. The barbed wire disappears underneath the service cables, the last piece in our puzzle. This is confirmatory evidence that the sword could only have been put in the ground at the same time or later than when the cables were laid.
The sword was lying on top of the wire, and the wire goes underneath the service cables right into the trench.
And the cables were laid in 1992 when the house was built. It's time for Crichton to hear the bad news from our investigations. Crichton, the sword is beautiful.
It is, isn't it?
But there is a disappointment attached to it. In fact, there's a disappointment attached to 2 or 3 things on this site. Basically, we can't tell you that this is either a prehistoric or a Roman site. But the biggest puzzle is the sword, because directly underneath the sword was barbed wire which can't be more than 20 years old, and the clear implication would be that it was put there sometime after the barbed wire, which is pretty contemporary, was laid down.
Is there no way that the barbed wire could have got under it, or the sword washed down on it?
I don't think so, because it's packed round with rotted dung, and the wire goes right underneath it for quite a distance each way. Clearly this barbed wire was there in the mud when this sword went in on the top of it.
The conclusion that all our archaeologists have come to is that sometime in the last 20 years somebody has put a scatter of antique finds down. Have you any idea how that might have happened?
I haven't got a clue. Just haven't got a clue.
I have to ask you this. Have you or your father-in-law bought the sword, placed them
Definitely
down?
not.
And nor have you scattered the Roman
Definitely
relics?
not.
Then who do you reckon did it?
I haven't got a clue, Ronnie.
There's clearly been a long tradition of creative archaeology at Llygadwy. Someone at some time must have planted the artefacts and done so with a motive. Perhaps they wanted to create a tourist attraction and exploit it. Or perhaps they wanted to be able to launder artefacts. Plundered or illegally imported artefacts can be planted in supposedly legitimate sites. When they're found again, they can be sold with an apparently legitimate provenance. It's a scam that's believed to be on the increase. But for us, this can only be speculation. Time Team's analytical and forensic approach to this site must be hailed as a major success and a victory for archaeology. Extraordinary weekend.
Absolutely fantastic. And finds fantastic.
That sword in particular.
Unbelievable.
Bill said that he's going to donate that to the local museum.
Oh, that's fantastic, isn't it? I'll tell you what it's meant for me, though. It's re-emphasised the importance of really a couple of boring archaeological concepts.
Which?
The stratigraphy on sites and the context of the finds. It really doesn't matter how valuable or attractive they are. If they're not in the right context, they can't tell us about the people living on that site.
And you know what I find really infuriating, Mick? All of these finds must have come from archaeological sites somewhere in Britain.
Yeah, yeah.
And people aren't going to be able to interpret those sites properly because key bits of evidence are now missing forever.
Well, they've been ripped out of the site, haven't they?
So frustrating. See those? Now they can tell us nothing.